The night was calm. Only the sound of wind and dry leaves filled the air around the lonely cabin in the forest. Jack Turner, a former soldier, lived there alone. It had been 3 years since the war ended, but the war had never left his mind. Every night he sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, trying to forget the screams, the fire, and the people he couldn't save. That night, as he looked up at the stars, he saw something strange, something burning across the sky. At first he thought it was a meteor, but it wasn't. The object moved too fast, too sharp, and then it changed direction. A second later, a huge boom echoed through the forest. The ground shook. The birds flew away in fear. Jack stood up instantly. His instincts woke up again, the same ones that had kept him alive in the war. He grabbed his flashlight and rifle, jumped into his old truck, and drove toward the smoke rising beyond the trees. The smell of burning metal filled the air as he reached the crash site. The ground was torn open and strange pieces of silver metal were spread everywhere. Sparks flickered from broken panels. He had never seen anything like it. The metal looked too smooth, too perfect, almost alive. Then he heard a soft cry. It was not human. He followed the sound and found something that made him freeze. Inside the broken shell of the ship lay a woman, tall, silver-skinned, her hair glowing faintly blue under the light. Her arm was bleeding dark purple blood. Beside her, a small child, no older than 6, was trapped under a metal beam. Jack didn't think. He dropped his gun and ran to them. "Hold on," he said, his voice shaking. The woman looked at him with glowing eyes, frightened but desperate. She said something in a language he didn't understand. Her voice was soft and trembling. He didn't know what she was saying, but he knew what she needed. He pulled at the beam with all his strength until it moved, freeing the child. The child gasped and clung to the woman. Jack quickly tore part of his shirt and wrapped it around her bleeding arm. The alien woman looked weak, her breathing fast. Jack noticed strange burns across her shoulder and smoke rising from her crashed ship. He looked around, no sound of sirens, no soldiers. Maybe nobody else had seen it yet. "You're safe now," he said quietly, though he wasn't sure if that was true. The woman pointed to the sky and whispered something that sounded like, "They..." "Coming," Jack froze. "Who's coming?" he asked, but she didn't reply. She just looked terrified and held her child tighter. That was enough for him. Without thinking twice, he lifted the injured woman in his arms, signaled the child to follow, and carried them back toward his truck. The ground behind them shook again. Something was moving in the dark, metallic and heavy. He reached the truck and placed them inside. The child hid under a blanket and the woman's eyes slowly closed. Her breathing was faint. "Stay with me," Jack said, turning the key. The engine roared to life. He sped down the dirt road, tires spinning in the mud. In the mirror, he saw lights, cold blue lights moving through the trees. They weren't searchlights. They were machines, flying drones, scanning the wreckage. Jack drove faster. The drones changed direction and started following. He knew the forest better than anyone, and he took the narrow trail that led to the old mine tunnel. It was dark and half collapsed, but it would hide them for now. Inside the tunnel, the air was cold and silent. He parked the truck, turned off the lights, and listened. The buzzing sound of drones passed above them and faded away. He finally looked at the 2 beings in the truck. The child was crying quietly. The woman was unconscious but alive. Jack sighed. "What the hell have I just done?" he whispered. He didn't know who they were, where they came from, or what danger followed them. But one thing was clear. They needed him. And for the first time in years, he felt alive again. Outside, the forest was quiet once more. But in the distance, a strange hum echoed across the night sky. Something else was coming. The night was silent again, but Jack's heart was still racing. The strange woman and her child were asleep in the back of his old truck, deep inside the abandoned mine tunnel. The weak light of his lantern danced on the stone walls, making shadows move like ghosts. Jack leaned against the driver's door and tried to calm down. He still could not believe what had happened. An alien ship had crashed only a few miles from his cabin. He had seen real aliens, not on TV, not in books, but in his own arms. And now they were hiding in his truck. He looked back at them. The woman's face was calm but pale, her breathing slow. The child slept beside her, holding her hand tightly. The strange silver skin of both shimmered faintly under the lantern's light. They looked fragile, not dangerous. Jack whispered to himself, "What the hell did I just bring home?" He knew he couldn't stay in the mine for long. The drones could return, or worse, whatever the woman meant when she said they coming. He needed to move before sunrise. He started the truck again quietly, driving deeper into the forest through an old path that only he knew. It was narrow and covered with leaves. The branches scratched against the windows and the engine growled softly. After an hour he reached his cabin, a small wooden house surrounded by tall trees. He parked behind it, hidden from the road. He carried the woman inside first. She was light, weaker than before. The child followed, silent and scared. Jack laid her on the couch and covered her with a blanket. When he turned around, the child was staring at him with big glowing eyes, half blue, half silver. Jack knelt down and smiled a little. "It's okay. You're safe here," he said softly. The child tilted his head, not understanding the words but feeling the kindness. He slowly touched Jack's arm and whispered something, the same strange language. Then he pointed at his mother and made a sign with his hands like a circle on his chest. Jack guessed he was asking for help. "I'll help her," he promised. He took out his first aid kit and started cleaning her wounds. Her skin reacted strangely to the antiseptic. It glowed faintly where he touched it, like light underwater. He could see the purple blood slowly stop flowing. Her body was healing faster than a human's. Hours passed. The woman woke just before dawn. She opened her eyes and stared at him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she tried to sit up, pain flashing across her face. "Easy," Jack said, holding her shoulder gently. "You're safe. You crashed. I brought you here." She looked around, confused but alert. Then, with effort, she spoke a few broken words in English and slow, uncertain. "You help us?" Jack nodded. "Yes, you and your child." Her eyes softened for a moment, then filled with fear again. "They find us," she said. "You must hide." Jack frowned. "Who are they?" She hesitated, searching for words. "Hunters," she finally said. "Killers, they destroy my people." Her voice broke. "My mate, gone. My ship, last one." Jack felt a sting in his chest. So she was a widow, a survivor running with her child from something terrible. He understood that kind of pain. He looked at the child again. The boy was sitting by the window, watching the first light of dawn through the trees. He looked small and lost. Jack stood up and locked the door. "Then we hide," he said firmly. "You rest. I'll take care of everything." The woman looked at him with quiet surprise. "Why's you help?" Jack looked down for a moment, remembering the faces of people he couldn't save during the war. Then he met her eyes again. "Because this time I can." For the first time, the alien woman smiled, and weak but real. She whispered something soft in her own language, and the child smiled too. Outside, the sun rose slowly, painting the forest in gold. But peace did not last long. Just before noon, Jack heard a low humming sound in the distance, the same sound he had heard near the crash site. He ran outside and saw faint blue lights flickering between the trees. The drones had found the trail. He rushed back inside. "They're coming," he said. The woman stood up, her eyes glowing brighter now. She placed her hand on the child's head and whispered something that made the air vibrate slightly. A strange, soft hum filled the cabin. "What's happening?" Jack asked. "Shield," she said simply. Outside, the hum grew louder. The trees shook. The air felt heavy. Jack grabbed his rifle and stood by the door, ready. "Then I guess we fight," he muttered. The woman looked at him, part fear, part trust. For a moment, human and alien shared the same thought. Survival. And then outside, something metallic moved through the forest. Large, fast, and hunting. The forest was quiet again, but it was the kind of silence that warned of danger. Jack could feel it in his bones. The same feeling he had before a fight during the war. He checked his rifle, loaded the last few bullets he had, and looked out the window. The blue lights were closer now, flickering between the trees like ghostly fireflies. The woman stood near the window, her silver skin glowing faintly under the morning light. Her child stayed close to her, clutching a small metallic pendant around his neck. It looked broken but important. Jack whispered, "How many of them?" The woman closed her eyes, listening. The strange glow on her temples brightened as if she could sense something beyond hearing. Then she opened her eyes and said, 3 drones. 1 hunter." Jack frowned. "Hunter?" She nodded slowly. "Not machine. Flesh and machine. Killer." Before Jack could ask more, the forest exploded with sound. A sharp blast echoed through the trees and a shockwave hit the cabin, breaking a window. The child screamed, "Down!" Jack shouted, pushing them to the floor as another blast shook the walls. He crawled to the window and saw them. 3 flying drones with blue eyes scanning the area, and behind them something huge stepped out of the smoke. It was nearly 8 feet tall, part metal, part dark armor, moving like a living shadow. Its mask glowed red. The hunter. Jack's grip on the rifle tightened. The woman whispered something to her child, and the pendant began to pulse with faint light. "What is that thing?" Jack asked. She looked at him, fear and anger in her eyes. "It killed my mate. It hunts all of us." The sound of metal footsteps grew louder. The hunter was close. Jack's mind raced. He couldn't fight it head-on. But he knew this land, every path, every trap from his hunting days. He turned to her. "Can you move?" She nodded weakly. "Yes. Good. Take your child and go through the back. Follow the old stream until the big rocks. Hide there." "What about you?" she asked. "I'll slow them down," Jack said firmly. She wanted to argue, but something in his voice stopped her. She simply placed her hand on his shoulder. "You brave human," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "Been called worse." As she escaped with the child through the back door, Jack grabbed 2 grenades from an old military box. He set them near the windows and waited. The drones moved closer, scanning the house. One beam of blue light touched the door. Jack took a deep breath, aimed, and fired. The bullet hit one drone, making it explode into sparks. The others responded instantly, firing plasma shots that tore through the wooden walls. Jack rolled behind the table, heart pounding. "Come on, you metal devils," he muttered. The grenades went off with a loud boom, shaking the ground. Smoke filled the cabin and the remaining drones fell from the sky, their circuits burning. But the hunter was still standing. Its red eyes cut through the smoke like fire. It stepped into the broken doorway, scanning the room. "Human," a deep metallic voice said. "You protect enemy, surrender." Jack wiped blood from a cut on his forehead and raised his rifle again. "You'll have to kill me first." The hunter tilted its head. Acceptable. It moved fast, too fast. Jack fired, hitting its shoulder, but the bullet only sparked against the armor. The hunter struck, throwing Jack across the room. His body hit the wall hard, pain exploding in his ribs. Before the hunter could finish him, something outside glowed bright blue, a flash like lightning. The air hummed. Jack looked up. The alien woman was standing at the edge of the trees, her hands raised. A wave of light spread from her palms, hitting the hunter like a force of nature. It stumbled back, roaring, armor cracking under the energy. She screamed in her language, unpowerful and heartbreaking, and the light pushed the hunter out of the cabin. But the attack took her strength. She fell to her knees, trembling. Jack crawled to her side, ignoring the pain. "You shouldn't have come back," he said. She looked at him weakly. "You fight for us. I fight for you." Behind them, the hunter rose again, half of its armor burned. It was hurt but alive. Its red eyes locked on them once more. Jack helped her up, the child running back to her arms. "We need to move now." The 3 of them ran into the forest as the hunter's roar filled the air. Trees fell behind them. Fire lit the sky. They didn't look back. Jack didn't know where the path would lead, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't letting them die. Not while he was breathing, and deep inside, as the smoke rose and the stars began to fade in daylight, something inside him changed. He was no longer a lonely man running from his past. He was a protector now. The forest was dark and quiet again, but the silence no longer felt safe. The smell of smoke from the burning cabin followed them through the trees. Jack ran ahead, helping the woman as she stumbled over roots and rocks. The child clung to her, his small feet barely keeping up. They finally stopped near a rocky stream where the trees grew thick and the sound of water covered their breathing. Jack dropped to his knees, exhausted, chest burning with every breath. His ribs hurt from the fight. The woman leaned against a tree, her body trembling, skin flickering faintly with weak light. The child touched her face, whispering something soft in their strange language. Jack looked back toward the smoke rising in the distance. "They'll find this place too," he said, his voice low. The woman nodded slowly. "Hunter, will not stop." Jack took a deep breath, staring at the stream. The water was cold and clear. "Then we keep moving," he said. "But first you both need rest." He helped her sit near the stream. When he dipped his hand in the water, it sparkled faintly under her glow. For a moment it looked almost magical. The child giggled softly, the first time Jack had heard him make a happy sound. The sound warmed his heart. "What's your name, kid?" Jack asked gently. The child tilted his head, confused. "Name," Jack repeated, pointing to himself. "Jack." The boy blinked, then pointed to himself and said something that sounded like Leary. "Leary?" Jack repeated, smiling. "Nice name." He pointed to the woman. "And you?" The woman hesitated, then said quietly, "Arenya." Jack nodded. Arenya and Leary. The names felt strange but beautiful on his tongue. "All right, Arenya. Let's get you cleaned up." He tore his last clean shirt into strips and soaked them in the stream. As he wiped the dirt and blood from her arm, she watched him silently. Her eyes were full of something between gratitude and sadness. "You help us," she said slowly. Her English was still broken but clearer than before. Jack shrugged. "I couldn't just leave you." She looked at the ground. "Many would," Jack smiled faintly. "Well, I'm not many." For a moment their eyes met, human brown and alien silver blue. In that quiet second, the fear and distance between their worlds seemed to fade. Leary walked up to Jack with something glowing in his small hands. It was a tiny piece of metal from their crashed ship, shaped like a crystal. He held it out shyly. "For me?" Jack asked. Leary nodded, smiling. "Friend," he said softly. Jack took it carefully. "Friend," he repeated. His voice cracked a little. It had been years since anyone had called him that. They rested for a while under the trees. The wind whispered through the leaves, and for a moment the forest felt peaceful again. As the sun began to set, Arenya spoke quietly. "My people, once peaceful. Hunters came from dark worlds. They take, destroy. We run, hide." She looked at Leary. "Last child," Jack's heart sank. "Your last child? You mean your kind?" She nodded, her voice trembling. "Only few ships escaped, maybe. None left now." Jack clenched his fists. "Then we make sure you both survive. I won't let them take you." Arenya looked at him with watery eyes. "You are strange human," she whispered. Jack chuckled. "Yeah, I get that a lot." They shared a small laugh. Quiet, tired, but real. That night they built a small fire under the rocks, its smoke hidden by the stream's mist. Jack gave them food from his old military rations. Arenya tried to eat but grimaced. Leary tasted it, then laughed and handed it back to Jack, shaking his head. Jack laughed too. "All right, fair enough. Alien taste buds, I guess." As the night deepened, Leary fell asleep in his mother's arms. The faint blue glow from their skin lit the darkness around them like soft moonlight. Jack sat near the fire, his rifle across his knees, listening to the forest. He could still hear faint metallic sounds far away. The hunters searching. Arenya looked at him from across the fire. "Why you fight?" she asked softly. Jack stared into the flames. "Because I've seen too much death," he said quietly. "I can't stop the war that already happened. But maybe I can stop this one." She nodded slowly, understanding more than words could say. "Jack," she whispered after a long pause, "you protect us. We protect you." He looked at her, surprised. "You don't owe me anything." She smiled weakly. "Family, protect family." Her words hit him deep. For years, Jack had felt like he had no one, just a ghost living in the woods. But now, sitting there with this strange woman and her child, he felt something he hadn't in a long time. Hope. He smiled faintly. "Then we protect each other," he said. And as the stars shone through the trees, the forest whispered again. But this time, it felt different. The night wasn't just dark anymore. It was alive, full of quiet promises. Somewhere far away, a red light blinked between the trees, a hunter's signal scanning for life. The peace wouldn't last long, but Jack was ready. He wasn't alone anymore. The morning came too early. The sun rose pale and cold over the forest, shining through the mist like a ghost. Jack woke before dawn, sitting near the dying fire. He hadn't slept much. Every sound made him reach for his rifle. Every shadow looked like a hunter. Arenya and Leary were still sleeping beside the stream, wrapped in blankets. Their faint silver glow flickered softly under the morning light. For a moment, Jack felt peace, a strange, fragile peace that made him smile. But it didn't last long. A sudden metallic hum drifted through the forest air, low, steady, and growing louder. Jack's head snapped up. "They found us," he whispered. Arenya's eyes opened at once. She could hear it too. Her skin brightened slightly as she stood, already holding Leary close. "Move," Jack said quickly. "Now." They grabbed what little they had and ran through the trees. The forest seemed endless, thick trunks, roots, and mist all around them. But the sound behind them grew louder, joined by the mechanical clicking of drones. Jack ran ahead, leading them toward higher ground. His boots pounded against the earth, his breath burning in his chest. The old soldier in him had returned, focused, calm, deadly. He turned back just in time to see blue plasma fire slice through the trees. It missed them by inches, burning a hole through a fallen log. Leary screamed. Arenya covered him with her arms, her skin glowing brighter, forming a weak energy shield around them. "Keep running," Jack shouted. They ran until they reached a ridge overlooking a deep valley. The old bridge that once crossed it was long gone, replaced only by broken planks hanging by rusty chains. Jack looked down. 100 feet below, the river roared like thunder. "We can't cross," he said. Arenya looked at him, her eyes glowing with determination. "We must." The humming grew louder. The drones were near. Jack made a quick decision. "All right, I'll go first. Hold on to me." He tied a rope around a thick tree and looped it across the broken bridge. Then step by step he moved across, testing the strength. The planks groaned under his weight, some snapping and falling into the water below. He reached the middle and turned. "Come on!" Arenya held Leary tight and began to cross. Each step made the bridge shake. Jack kept his eyes on them, ready to pull if needed. Then the first drone appeared above the trees. Its red eye glowed, scanning, locking onto them. "Go faster," Jack yelled. The drone fired. The plasma bolt hit one of the chains, sending sparks flying. The bridge swung wildly. Arenya screamed as the wood beneath her foot cracked. Jack lunged forward, grabbing her hand before she fell. Leary clung to her neck, crying, "Hold on," Jack shouted, pulling with all his strength. The bridge groaned but held. He dragged them up and across, collapsing on the far side. They rolled into the grass, panting, just as another blast tore through the remains of the bridge. The drones couldn't follow, not yet. But then from the sky the hunter appeared again. It leapt across the gap with terrifying force, landing on their side of the valley. Its red eyes burned like fire. Jack pushed Arenya and Leary behind him. "Run!" he yelled, firing his rifle. The bullet sparked off the hunter's armor. It didn't slow down. The creature swung its arm, sending Jack flying into a tree. His rifle fell to the ground. Pain shot through his side. "Jack!" Arenya screamed. She raised her hands, blue energy gathering around them, and fired a wave of light. The blast hit the hunter square in the chest, throwing it backward, but not for long. Its armor smoked, but it stood again, stronger than before. Leary began to cry, clutching his pendant. The crystal glowed bright, brighter than before, a white-blue light pulsing like a heartbeat. Jack coughed, blood on his lips. "What's happening?" Arenya looked shocked. His pendant. "Energy core, my ship. It reacts to danger." The light grew stronger, surrounding Leary like a shield. The hunter roared and charged. But the shield burst outward, a massive shockwave of light and sound. The trees bent, the ground shook, and the hunter was thrown into the river below with a crash that echoed through the valley. Then, silence. Jack lay still, breathing heavily. The air was filled with faint blue mist. Arenya crawled to him, touching his face. "Jack, you alive?" He opened his eyes slowly, managing a small grin. "Still here." She helped him sit up, her hands glowing as she healed the bruise on his arm. The warmth spread through him like sunlight. Leary came closer, eyes wide and glowing softly. "Safe," he whispered. Jack smiled weakly. "Yeah, kid, safe. For now." They looked at the river where the hunter had fallen. The water boiled for a moment, then went still. Arenya frowned. "It not dead," she said softly. "It will return," Jack sighed. "Then we better be ready next time." He stood up, looking toward the distant mountains. "We keep moving. If there's any chance someone else from your people survived, we'll find them." Arenya nodded slowly. "Together." Jack looked at her, then at Leary, who held both their hands. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Together." Above them the clouds began to part, revealing faint stars even in daylight, as if the sky itself was watching. But far below, deep in the river's shadow, a red light blinked once. Then twice. The hunter was alive, and it was angry. The forest had changed. Days had passed since the battle at the Valley Bridge, but the memory of the explosion still burned in Jack's mind. The hunter had fallen into the river, swallowed by water and rocks. Yet Arenya's warning haunted him. It not dead. They had traveled deeper into the mountains, far from any road or human eye. Jack built a small shelter inside an old stone cave covered by thick vines. It was quiet there, and at night the stars glowed brighter than ever. For a while, things felt peaceful. Arenya was healing fast, and Leary had begun to laugh again. Jack even managed to make a small fire that didn't smoke much, just enough to cook and keep them warm, but deep inside, he knew peace wouldn't last. A fragile calm Jack sat outside the cave, cleaning his old rifle under the pale moonlight. He had patched it together using parts from broken drones, but he knew it wouldn't stop the hunter for long. Behind him, Arenya was humming, a soft melody that echoed faintly in the air. The sound wasn't human. It was higher, sweeter, like wind through crystal. Leary sat beside her, tracing strange glowing symbols on the cave wall with his finger. The symbols shimmered, then faded. Jack turned his head slightly. "What's that song?" Arenya looked up. "Lullaby. For child." "From my world," Jack smiled. "It's beautiful." She nodded, eyes sad. Last song of home. Silence followed, heavy and full of memories. Jack looked at Leary, who was still drawing. "He's smart. Learns fast," Arenya smiled proudly. "He learns everything, but he must hide. His power not normal?" Jack frowned. "Power?" She hesitated, then placed her hand on the glowing marks Leary had made. They flickered alive again, brighter now, symbols floating in midair like stars. Jack stepped closer, amazed. "What is this, Leary?" "Carries energy seed," Arenya said softly. "It was gift from our core world. Energy of life, knowledge, healing. Hunters want it. If they take it, they can make war without end." Jack's stomach tightened. "So that's why they're after you," she nodded. "They kill my mate. He protect the seed. Now Leary carry it inside." Jack looked at the boy, who smiled innocently, unaware of the weight he carried. "So he's the last hope of your people." Arenya's voice trembled. "Yes, and if he dies, everything dies with him." Jack clenched his fists. "Then we won't let that happen." She met his eyes, and for a moment there was no alien or human, only two souls trying to protect what was left of their worlds. The signal that night, the wind grew stronger. Jack noticed the radio he'd built from drone parts suddenly crackling with static. He hadn't turned it on, yet it buzzed with faint, distorted sound, like whispers. He frowned, twisting the wires. Then he froze. Through the static came a voice, mechanical, deep, and broken. "Target, alive. Tracking. Coordinates. Confirmed." Jack's blood went cold. He ran into the cave. "Arenya, they're coming!" Her eyes widened. "How?" Jack held up the radio. "They're using the drone parts. I must have left a signal active." Without a word, Arenya ran to Leary and pulled him close. The cave began to hum with blue light again, her energy building up. Outside, the night exploded. The trees bent under the force of a shockwave, and the earth shook. Red lights flickered through the forest like demon eyes. The hunter had returned. The fight for survival. Jack grabbed his rifle and shouted, "Go! Through the back tunnel." Arenya hesitated. "You come." "I'll cover you," Jack yelled. The hunter's footsteps echoed closer, each one like thunder. Jack fired, hitting its chest. Sparks flew, but the thing didn't stop. Its armor was darker now, melted and reformed. Its red eyes burned brighter. The hunter spoke, voice sharp and metallic. "Return the seed. Spare the human." Jack gritted his teeth. "Not happening." He threw one of the old grenades. The explosion shook the cave entrance, rocks falling everywhere. The hunter staggered but kept moving. Arenya raised her hands and unleashed a wave of blue energy. It hit the hunter, slowing it down, but she screamed as the feedback burned through her arms. Jack ran to her side. "You can't fight it like this." She looked at him, pain in her eyes. "No choice." Leary suddenly stepped forward, clutching his pendant, the crystal now glowing white-hot. "Leary." "No," Arenya shouted, but it was too late. The light burst from his hands like lightning, striking the hunter full force. The cave filled with blinding blue light. When it faded, the hunter was gone. Only smoke and melted metal remained. Jack fell to his knees, panting. "Is it over?" Arenya shook her head weakly. "No, only delay. It will return stronger. They always return." She turned to Leary, who had collapsed from exhaustion. His glow was fading. Jack picked the boy up gently. He's alive. Yes, Arenya whispered, tears in her eyes. But his energy burns fast. If he keeps using it, he will die. Jack looked out into the forest where the smoke rose. Then we find a way to stop them, for good. He looked back at her, his voice firm. You said your people built the energy seed. There must be a place, a base, a signal, something that can help us fight back. Arenya hesitated, then nodded slowly. There is one place. Far north. Frozen land. My last message sent there, maybe. Survivors. Jack's eyes hardened. Then that's where we're going. He looked up at the stars, the cold wind brushing his face. The fight wasn't over. It was only beginning. And this time, he wasn't just running. He was leading them home. The wind howled across the frozen wasteland. Snow fell like ash, swirling in thick white waves. Jack pushed forward, his face stung by the cold. Behind him, Arenya carried Leary, wrapped in blankets glowing faint blue. Each step through the snow felt heavier than the last. Weeks had passed since they left the mountains. They had crossed rivers, forests, and ruins of old cities, all empty now. Jack had seen no signs of life except for broken machines and abandoned roads. The world felt lonely, but not dead. Somewhere ahead there was still hope. Arenya had told him about a place called the Silent Haven, an old outpost built by her people long ago when they first came to Earth. If any survivors still lived, they would be there. And maybe, just maybe, they could stop the hunters for good. Jack glanced back at her. You doing okay? She nodded weakly. Almost there. I feel it. Leary stirred in her arms. His pendant glowed faintly again. Jack smiled. Hang in there, little guy. Then the sky changed. A distant red light pierced through the storm. It blinked once. Then again, Arenya stopped walking. Her eyes widened. It's him, Jack followed her gaze. In the distance, through the snow, a shape moved, large, dark, and burning red. The hunter. Jack's jaw tightened. We killed it, Arenya shook her head. They rebuild. Always rebuild. The hum of engines filled the air as more shapes appeared. Drones, dozens of them surrounding the frozen field. Jack raised his rifle. No running this time. Arenya stepped beside him. No, we end this. The haven they reached a wide, flat plain covered in snow. At the center stood a half-buried structure made of strange white metal, glowing faintly under the ice. The walls pulsed with the same blue light that flowed through Arenya's veins. The haven, she whispered. Jack pushed open the frozen doors. Inside was silence, cold, still, ancient. The walls were covered in symbols like the ones Leary used to draw. In the center stood a tall crystal column, cracked but still shining. What is it? Jack asked. Power core, Arenya said softly. Last light of my people. If it wakes, it can destroy hunters, but needs life energy to start. Jack looked at her. Yours? She nodded slowly. Mine. Or his. She looked at Leary. Jack's voice hardened. No, we're not sacrificing him. Arenya smiled sadly. Then I give mine. Before Jack could stop her, she placed her hand on the crystal. The room lit up in blue fire, symbols glowing along the walls. Her body shimmered as energy flowed from her into the core. Arenya, stop, Jack shouted. She looked back at him, eyes glowing bright. Protect him. That's all that matters. The door suddenly blew open. The hunter entered, its red eyes burning through the snow. Surrender the seed, it roared. Jack fired his rifle, but the bullets bounced off its armor. He dodged left as a plasma blast hit the floor, melting the metal. Leary woke and screamed. The pendant around his neck flared white hot. The energy connected to the crystal, joining his mother's light. The whole chamber shook. No, Jack yelled, shielding his face from the blinding glow. Arenya's voice echoed in the air. Jack, thank you. The light exploded outward. The sacrifice, when the brightness faded, Jack opened his eyes slowly. The hunter was frozen in place and its armor cracked, its core dark. The drones had fallen from the sky like dead birds. The storm outside had gone silent. Arenya stood near the crystal, her body flickering like fading light. Jack ran to her. You did it. You stopped them. She smiled weakly. Not me, Leary. Jack turned. The boy stood at the base of the crystal, unharmed, glowing softly. His small hands pressed against the glass. The haven lives, Arenya whispered. He awakened it. Jack looked at her in horror. You're fading. Her glow dimmed. My energy. Part of the haven now. I'll watch from stars. Jack's throat tightened. Don't go. She reached out, touching his face. Her hand was warm, even as it turned to light. You gave us hope, Jack Turner. Protector of two worlds. And with a final smile, she dissolved into shimmering dust that rose toward the ceiling, joining the crystal's glow. Leary cried out softly, holding the pendant. Jack knelt beside him and wrapped his arms around the boy. She's gone, kid. But she's still here. In this light. In you. A new dawn. Days later, the storm cleared. The haven glowed softly under the sun. Jack stood outside looking over the frozen valley. Leary played near the door, his laughter echoing in the air. He had built a small marker in the snow, a cross made from broken metal and stones. On it he carved with his knife, Arenya, the light that fought the darkness. He looked at the horizon where the stars still shimmered faintly, even in daylight. You kept your promise, he whispered. Leary walked up to him, holding the glowing pendant. He placed it in Jack's hand. Jack smiled. No, kid. You keep it. You're the future now. The boy shook his head and said one word in perfect English. His first. Family. Jack froze, then smiled, eyes wet. Yeah, family. He picked the boy up and looked at the sky. The war was over for now, but he knew there were more out there. Other hunters, other survivors, and he would be ready. Because Jack Turner, the man who once lived alone in the woods, was no longer just a soldier. He was the guardian of a new world.